honestly just want to get with my friends and talk about them, their stories, their lives, their challenges, and how they overcame them. I just want to get to know them on a deeper level, and of course we're gonna laugh. I mean, that's what we do. But I want them to feel that someone listened. And that's it. This is the Barr+Friends podcast, where it's my space, your story, 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 your story.
I am your listening host, Christian Barr, and this is the Barr and Friends podcast. Today on Barr and Friends, and I am so excited that I have her on, y'all. We've been trying to schedule this for weeks now, and we finally are making it happen. We have a woman of God, mother, fitness enthusiast, big dreamer, author, podcaster, speaker, entrepreneur, investor, and a nurse. Y'all, she does it all. Welcome. For the first time on Bar and Friends, and hopefully it won't be the last. Ginger, how are you?
I'm better now that we're recording. Thank you for having me.
Of course, absolutely. So I just want to just get right into it. You released a book called Thrive: How to Let Go and Find Purpose. And so I just want to know more about the book and just tell me your whole process on writing the book.
I love this question because I think I feel like my process was not normal in a way. It's like people, they like make the decision, like, I'm going to write a book. And then they sit down and write and they finish writing and they publish it, which was a little bit similar, but I didn't have like that clear strategy or steps in front of me. I just knew like, oh, I could write a book on this topic, which it all originally started from a virtual Bible study because it was still like fresh out the pandemic. So we weren't back in person yet. And we were talking about like, how do you know when it's time to leave a relationship? And I was fortunate enough to be the last one to answer that question. So it gave me time to really think about my answer. And as I thought about it, I was like, ooh, I actually have a lot to say about this topic. And I decided to turn it into a book. So at this time, my daughter was like maybe 1 year old, like not definitely like under two. And so it was tricky to find time to write. So anytime she was like napping or she was down and God just reminded me of a certain story, I would just write it down. And so I wrote my book. The actual writing happened in like 2021, 2022. And then nothing happened. Like I finished writing the stories and I was like, all right, well, it's there. I don't know what to do now. And God is good because he puts people in our life and sometimes we don't even know why until years later. And so one of my friends from college, she was on social media, but then she went MIA for a while, like for years. And then she popped back out and she's like, hey, I'm an author, I'm a speaker. I'm like, this girl's doing all the things that I want to do. So I was like, hey, I actually wrote a book, but I don't know what to do with it or like how to get it out there. Like, can you connect me with your publisher? And so she did, and we hit it off. And I was like, the writing is done. Because, step one is to write the book. I was like, the writing is done. Here, take this. And so she was able to take what I had written down and just get it organized and kind of like fill in some gaps that that I didn't have as far as like the intro and making sure that after each chapter was kind of a closing thought, and just really making sure that it was like a better read than just a bunch of stories thrown together. She added like that professionalism that I had no idea. So that was awesome. So I worked with Extreme Overflow Publishers, and it was a great experience. They took my writing, they did the editing, the cover design. We did a little bit of marketing strategy, and it was a really good experience, especially as a first-time author where I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I just wrote a book. God put it on my heart to write. I wrote. That's it. So to work with somebody who knows the marketing and the language and how the reader's thinking and also I shared some really sensitive stories. And so to work with another kingdom entrepreneur who handled things with such grace and was like, okay, we want to share your story. We want to share the difficult things, but we're not here to trigger anybody or bash anybody. And so to have that other set of eyes was a huge blessing. So that's a little bit about the process.
Okay. What was one, what was a chapter that was extremely hard for you to write about or very
That's a good
sensitive?
question.
Yeah.
Probably the chapter that started it all off, which is me talking about getting divorced.
Mm,
And it's crazy because I wrote that before my divorce was actually final.
mm,
So I was writing from the perspective of like, I ended up in an abusive relationship, and here's how. Like, here's what led up to it. Here's where I made the decision to walk away. But I wasn't able to write from the standpoint of now that I'm divorced, like that final ending kind of. And I also just had faith because I was like, all right, God, I know you told me to write this book and share my story. So I trust that you're going to take care of the details. And literally, it'll be almost a year now since my divorce is finalized and the book came out. So, like, the divorce was finalized and then the book came out like a week or two later. So that was God. But that was
wow.
difficult to write for sure because it's like, it was still a little bit fresh, and then remembering all the things, and which remembering it was difficult, but it was also very healing because just to have the perspective of like, wow, like I'm not there anymore, but looking back, like I see all these things, and now I know what to do differently. And also I'm so thankful that I'm not there anymore, and God is gracious enough to bring me out of that because I was so stubborn and hard-headed, but he still saw me through. And then also just the aspect of like, I'm writing this, I'm sharing my story, but there's a chance that like my daughter might read this one day, and like what will she think, so that was definitely interesting. But like I said, I found the writing process to be very healing. So I really feel like if somebody's listening to this and you got a book on your heart, get that thing done.
For sure. Now, are you, were you worried about your ex and how he may take the book? Like, oh my gosh, like she's writing about our business. Like were you concerned at all about that or no?
No. No, because also like before I started writing the book, I had already started to speak out about what I had gone through I did like a few Instagram lives and some Facebook posts just sharing about what I had been through. And I don't know about using the word narcissist because we that became very popular, and I don't have a degree, so I'm not gonna use that word. But I'll just say I've noticed that there's a certain character that has certain characteristics that are very common. So this type of character, they don't like to take responsibility for what they have done. And unfortunately, that is how my ex-husband is. And so, like, I shared my side of the story, but I'm sure his side of the story is completely different. But like I said, I had previously spoken out about what took place in our relationship before my book, and I had already received all the backlash, mostly from people that were connected to him or people that were in abusive situations themselves that hadn't come out of it or had excused it. And so I never focused on them. My focus was always, and still is to this day when I share my story, is to that person that I'm helping out, to that person that needs to know that there's a way out and you're not alone, and abuse is unacceptable no matter what form it is. So, because if you focus on, oh, what are they going to say? What's this person going to say? It'll definitely hold you back. And also, I think moving forward, because I do feel like there's more books on the inside of me, I don't know that I would do it in the same way. Because it is hard when you're sharing your story about other people's story. It does get complicated. Yeah.
No, for sure. It does. It gets
Yeah.
sticky.
Yeah.
share with me a little bit of how you feel when you were in the marriage. I'm pretty sure you felt miserable till now, because I assume that now that you're divorced, like you feel just liberated, you feel free, you feel brand new. So kind of explain or give my listeners just a little bit of a taste on. Now of course, as a Christian, as believers, we don't pray for divorce for anyone, but of course, if there's abuse going on, but um yeah, like, how do you feel after the divorce? And yeah, like what's your thought process, but like how's your mental?
Good question. Well, I mean, like, personally, how's my mental right now? I'm in Florida. We just went through 2 hurricanes, and
Oh
like
my
that was a
gosh,
lot. But
crazy.
back to what you asked. While I was in the relationship, I think it always starts off good in the beginning, right? It's always so sweet in the beginning. You're so excited. You're in love, and then I think even though I was in love and out here fornicating, which doesn't help. It doesn't help you to think logically. um, there were still like moments that would come up that would leave me deeply troubled, or many moments where I cried during the relationship. But every time we had those moments, I would just brush it off, and I was like, "It's fine. I'm committed to this. We're gonna grow together. We got our counselor in place. It's gonna be fine." Even though like all my friends and family was like, "This is not it," but I was just like, "It's fine. Like, I don't want to date again. I don't want to start over again." So I just made all these excuses. And then I'm not really sure where the switch flipped exactly, but over the course of the relationship, we met in New York, and then we moved to North Carolina just before the pandemic. And so I think that was another added stressor to the relationship because I didn't have a support system. I was alone, I was pregnant, and there was just so much going on. The pandemic started, and the main thing that I remember from being in that time was rage and anxiety, which is crazy because those are not normally words that I would attribute to myself or describe myself as. So I knew something was wrong, and I was so sad. I literally feel like if I wasn't pregnant, like I would have tried to end my own misery because I just wanted out. I was miserable, but I couldn't do that to my daughter because I felt like that wouldn't be fair to her unborn life. So that's where I was mentally, just very low. And then, I think the sun started shining again after I left. Um, and the crazy part is when I left, I didn't intend on leaving for good. I just knew like this environment is not healthy. I'm not my best self here, and I can't be the mom that I need to be for my newborn here. So I'm just going to go back home, and maybe a change of scenery will help me to process all of this. But it's like as soon as I got in the car and started driving back up 95, that's when like the clarity started coming back. And I was like, oh, there is no going back. Like, and I had to like actually practice saying like this is an abusive relationship because I've been in toxic relationships before, but abusive is another level. And so I really had to practice saying that to really internalize it and accept that that was what was happening. And yeah, once I got back home to my parents' house, it was just a place of peace. And I just remember the sun shining. And I'm laughing because last night I was on TikTok and I saw this video of this little baby that was like curled up, napping on the floor. And if you look on the floor, you'll see like sunlight that's coming through like skylights or little windows in the ceiling. And somebody was like, "Oh, they found their sun puddle." And I was like, "That's so cute." And then it brought back the memories of me being a little kid, and in my childhood home had skylights that the sun would come through, and when you find that nice warm spot on the carpet, yeah, that's a good nap for a kid. But to walk back into my childhood home with my daughter and know that I was safe and taken care of, that really helped me. I knew that the journey ahead was not going to be easy. And for a long time, I did push off starting the legal proceedings because I knew I was going into uncharted territory. And I was like, it's too much. But I knew that it was necessary. So I would say things got better as far as like, okay, I'm not in that home anymore. I'm loved, I'm safe, I'm supported. My child is also the same here. Um, and then that, I feel like that went downhill because then he came back to New York and he didn't tell me. Like he called, I think I called him to find out something about our house in North Carolina, and I heard a voice in the background, and I was like, I know that voice, and I'm pretty sure that person is not in North Carolina, so that means you're in New York. And that's when my little safety bubble popped. But um again, like I continued to move forward. I tried to co-parent, and then that's when I realized I was still subjecting myself to domestic violence. And so that's when I started to get the resources in place with my local domestic violence center and a therapist, which again helped me to continue to move forward. And going through the legal process was very difficult. There was a lot of uncertainty, especially because you get that date and your life kind of, it could like stop until that date comes, kind of, and you just don't know what's going to happen, what judge you're going to get. Like if I was working with limited resources, so I had to trust in the lawyers that I had to hopefully do what they're supposed to do because that's all I could afford. And so it was complicated, but each time I always just submitted it to God, and I had a good support system with friends who had been through similar situations that were able to encourage me and pray with me. So yeah, I got so much favor from beginning to end with my legal proceedings. And even one thing that I'm really proud of myself for is that I didn't wait until everything to be finished to continue to move forward. So like even though the divorce wasn't finalized and we are still figuring out things in court, I still moved forward with my podcast, got back to podcasting. I still moved forward with writing my book, with showing up on social media, with investing into my first business coach. Like I was still making moves because I decided for all of the pain that I felt, I was going to get something out of it. Like God was going to get a return on the investment that he made into me, and I wasn't going to stop living until the courts decided the outcomes. And so I think because of that, those seeds that I planted along the way, it helped me to get to where I am now, where it's like, yes, like the podcast is back up and rolling. I was able to do my first book. Like my business is established, and I've worked with a couple different coaches, and I had my first coaching client recently. So it's like, it's just been a process, and it's not easy, but I will say like where I am spiritually now is beautiful because I've been humbled. Like I let God into my healing process, and I let him love on me, and instead of running after like another guy, I was like, no, God, like I'm gonna sit in this uncomfortableness, and I'm gonna let you show me what's at the roots, and I'm gonna pursue intimacy with you. I'm gonna get into your word. I'm gonna learn your promises for myself and let you restore me. And so I still feel like I'm being restored, and that he's still redeeming some things. But it's amazing. I'm leading groups at church for the first time. Like I never saw that for myself, but here I am. So it's been beautiful. It hasn't been easy, but it's been beautiful.
Doing what God has called you to do. I love it. I love it. Now, as you were talking, I have like 15,000 questions. But I know some women that just got out of your situation. And my thought to them, because I'm just, it's the protectiveness in me that comes up like, well, if you knew that homeboy was this way, but they say, Christian, no, homeboy wasn't always this way. You
Yeah.
know, he was kind, he was generous, he was giving, he was loving. Somewhere along the way, it just got out of control. And so I would often ask, them like, but why did you stay? Like, was the sex that good? And they would say, Christian, you so crazy. But no, they would say like, and then I would be like, for real, like, was it just was it some type of power that he had over you? Like, and that's my question to you. Like, why did you stay so long? Like, was it the power, or were you a little bit scared, or were you afraid to move because he may try to, you know, hunt you down? Like, why do you think it is? Why do you think women choose? Because they may want to get out of that situation, but they're too afraid to. But why do you think it could be, you know, a reason why they would stay?
It's so multifaceted. Like, it's very complex. It's not like, oh, they stay because this. I wish
Right.
it was that simple, but there's so many things. And I'll speak from my personal experience. So there was this little girl that always dreamed of being a wife and just always valued marriage. And I come from a really healthy two-parent household where I see a beautiful marriage in front of me, which I didn't realize until after I went through all this. I was definitely like, what's I forgot the saying, but like, just I was blind to what was right in front of me, because it was so familiar. I just thought it was normal. But after trying out marriage for myself and not in the best way, I was like, okay, wow, like I have a lot more respect for my parents. But yeah, like I always really valued marriage, and divorce from my parents was never an option. So that mentality was kind of instilled in me. So I was like, oh, I don't want to get a divorce. And I was 22, 23 at the time. So I'm like, great, 23 and divorced, fantastic. This sounds wonderful. All sarcasm. Because you're not thinking about that for yourself at 23 years old at all. And then the fact that we are now have brought a life into this, a child into this, they're going to come from a broken home. And then I moved. There was definitely a lot of pride there, because it's like this whole time everybody was telling me this ain't it. He's not the one. I don't like him. And I was so hard headed and out to prove everybody wrong. And so there was some pride there of like, no, we gotta see this through, because I gotta prove these people wrong. And then I had a marriage counselor at the time who was like, after every session, I felt so much hope. So that made it really hard also to leave, because it's like, we just had our session, everything was good, we had communication, but then like that same night or the next day, like things are trash again. So those highs and lows make it really hard to think straight. And then yeah, like, we I made some big decisions. Like I got married, I bought a house, like I was starting a brand new life with this person, and to just throw that away so quickly was difficult. Moving ahead into the legal proceedings, like I mentioned, I've been in court for speeding tickets. At that point, that was it, and that was only like twice. So like the whole idea of going to court was super scary, and then all you hear about is how expensive lawyers are, and I didn't have a lot of money, and it just seemed like barriers and obstacles. And then the other person too, because he did not want to let go of the relationship at first. Like it took him a long time to accept that, like, oh, she's really not coming back. Like for a long time he was still like, oh, you're still my wife, right? And please come back, like I'm sorry, da da da, like all of that. You're like, oh, like maybe he means it. But no, it's just, it is very complicated. And one thing that was also big for me was like, and I just posted about this last week or something, because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And one thing for me is that I knew from a young age, like, I'll never let nobody put their hands on me. Like, I'm half Puerto Rican, okay? I'm from New York. I'm from Rockland County, but not from New York, New York. So, anyways, you put your hands on me, like, I'm fighting back. I'm going down fighting. I had established that in my head. But what I did not ever consider was what emotional abuse looked like. Nobody ever sat down and talked to me about that. And then also, like, when you come from a healthy household, it's not really conversations that you sit down and have. And also because I think generationally, like my parents' generation to my generation, as far as emotional intelligence, that we've come so far. And so maybe those are conversations that they didn't have with me, but I'll probably have them with my daughter now. But at the time, like I didn't know what emotional abuse looked like. I was blind to the manipulation. So yeah. there had to be a lot of, my eyes had to be open to a lot. And I felt like if I had had a baby boy instead of a baby girl, that also would have complicated things because I would have felt like, oh, this boy needs their dad. But I looked at it differently as I'm not teaching my daughter that this is how a man treats you because it's absolutely not. And so that was God. But it's just so many factors. It's not just like, yeah, let me just get up and leave. It's like, oh wow, like I'm abandoning I'm abandoning this dream that I had in my head that I was idealizing, that I could see the future. We bought this house so that we could have babies in it and grandkids and family gatherings. It's kissing all that goodbye. And then also now, like, what was it in me that tolerated this? Right? Like a lot of people are not ready to be that honest with themselves. And so I had to look in the mirror and be like, oh wow, okay. Yeah, we got some work to do. So it's heavy.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now, with all that, with all the toxicity and the abuse and all of that, and you got out of that, do you see yourself remarrying again?
Absolutely. I love love. I am a hopeful romantic. Um
Hmm.
it's definitely still yes for me, but
I was, yeah. Hmm.
yes, but
He has to kind of like prove himself in a sense, right? Or kind of like
yes,
you have to get to know. Yeah.
there's so many different things that I would do this time around. Um for example, like the values have to be aligned, like the values have to be equal. And that's a lot more of a non-negotiable for me than it was before, and also just a really big emphasis on the spiritual aspect that I was overlooking before. That weeds out a lot of people right there. Because before I would meet guys and they would be like, yeah, like my family's Christian, I grew up in church, or, I'm trying to get back to God. And I'd be like, okay, cool. Like the foundation is there. We're good. And no, 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 we're not doing that anymore. Like if you don't hear from the Holy Spirit for yourself, if you have not accepted Jesus Christ for yourself, not because your mama, not because your grandmama, for yourself, like we can't talk. And so that right there weeds out so many people. And also what's different this time around too is like when God shows me something, whether it's like in a dream or like that gut feeling or whatever, like I don't ignore that anymore. Because before I would just be like, yeah, I don't think it's gonna work out, but let me just see. Let me just give it a try. Like we can fix things. It'll be fine. And now I'm like, nope. Holy Spirit already showed me what's up. I'm not gonna do it. Sorry. If you don't understand, that's your problem. But I know what God told me, and I'm gonna stand on that. And also just including my support system in my decision making. So like before, I would like wait until I don't even know, but like I would let them know this is who I'm dating. Like, what do you think? But at the end of the day, it's like I don't really care what you have to say because I'm gonna do what I want to do. That's not the attitude anymore. It's like, hey, I'll call up my brother or I'll talk to my sister or my parents and be like, like I'm talking to this guy. This is what's going on. This is my concerns. This is what I think that could be good. And I will actually like honor their feedback. Like before, it was like, yeah, whatever. It's me and him against the world. I'm in love. I don't care. But now I'm like, wise counsel. Yeah, let me get some of that. Let me listen this time. So it's completely different. And even in the last year or two, it has really guarded me from a lot of unnecessary situations. So I do look forward to when God brings that person. But until then, like, we're focused on my daughter, myself, and continuing to just show up and serve and be the light. Because you get into the wrong relationship, it will dim your light. You'll lose focus. It'll take away from your ability to show up as the parent you need to be. So I can't afford that stuff anymore.
It's true. Yeah, yeah. I love how you said that. And speaking about the gut feelings, I love that. I love that so much because it was like before I got married, I was, dating these women, and like the feelings were mutual, that we wanted to get into a relationship and take things forward. And we did, but there was always this gnawing. It it wasn't nausea, but it was just like, like this ain't it. But I'm
Yeah.
like, nah, it's just me. Maybe I'm just having a little bit of health problems or whatever. And the feeling would go away for a
Yeah.
couple of days. But then, when I would, be with her and we would talk about life and stuff like that. And then, we would go home and that feeling would come right back. And I'm like, oh, like, but what is it? She's beautiful. She has everything that I like. And the thing is, I knew it was God, but I did not want to seek him about that situation. Like, yeah, we can talk about money. Yeah, we can talk about, what you want to give me as far as sermon wise, what you want me to say to the people. But no, like in my relationships, I got this, God. All right,
Yeah.
go ahead and get checked up if you want to. But it's like, I thank God for those checks, for those gut checks, because if it wasn't for that, I'd be jacked up somewhere. And it's 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 just God's grace and his mercy, because it's like it's sometimes it's just hard to explain his grace and his mercy, because it's like
Yeah.
even when we were naive or green or we didn't know what we were doing, his spirit was still leading and guiding us, even when we were making dumb and just ignorant
Yeah. Yeah.
decisions. So yeah, I, I had to I had to trust what the Holy Spirit was saying to my spirit, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I understand.
Oh, yes. So I think that we kind of covered this just a little bit where we kind of talked about the relationship part, but I want to talk about your Genesis, and pretty much on the Bar and Friends podcast. This is the segment that we kind of just talk about you, where we talk about your beginning. And so I just want to know a little bit about Ginger's beginning all the way up till now. It can be childhood stories, it can be whatever you want to share about your life, but it's pretty much just a spotlight where you can kind of just be able to just highlight some memories and just get to know you a little bit more. So yeah, share your Genesis story.
Love this question. um, so I mentioned that I'm from Rockland County, New York, which is a little bit north of New York City. My mom and my dad are from New York City, from Brooklyn and the Bronx. And then when they decided that they were going to start their family, they wanted to move away. They both grew up in the projects. So they wanted to move away from that and do better for their family. And so I was raised in the suburbs. And even though I was raised in Rockland County, I definitely claim New Jersey. I was born in New Jersey, and I feel like that's where I lived life. I went to school in New Jersey. I played basketball in New Jersey. So I feel like I just went back to New York to go to sleep. That's my house, but I live life in New Jersey. And like growing up, my parents, when they met, they were not believers. And then they made the decision to give their lives to Christ while they were dating. And so that really laid like the foundation for our family. I'm the oldest out of four. so so growing up, we were always in private Christian school, and that really shaped me a lot because while I was in it, I did not appreciate it at all. I was like, I'm trying to see what public school is about. Like, I don't know anybody where I live. All my friends are scattered throughout New Jersey. I have a handful of friends in New York. I want to go to public school. Like, I want to see what's going on over there. Thank God that I didn't. But because I was in like private Christian school, it's really just set me up for so many good things as far as I was always on the honor roll. I was always a student athlete. I got introduced. I guess that was where the foundations were laid for me becoming a writer because I was always really good with English and writing, even though it wasn't a passion of mine. But like I had that I can't think of a word. I always want to use the right word. It's like propensity, inclination. I don't know. But like I always had that like I was good with English, but it's funny because like when I got to college, they were like, you should make this your minor. And I was like, I'm studying nursing. Like, I'm not doing nothing with English. Like, no, thank you. I don't want to take any more. But the foundation was laid. On top of that, I feel like it laid a good foundation for critical thinking, which is key as you get older to be able to critically think and just process, because we have so much information coming at us, and like, what do we do with that? Like, how do we form thoughts and express ourselves clearly and process things? Like, that foundation for critical thinking was definitely laid, as well as good old Bible class. I'm so thankful that I was getting into the word so young. And on top of that, I had my first introduction to apologetics in 8th grade. So that was really cool too, because a lot of people, especially like Christians specifically, like they have no idea what apologetics is, or like, how do we apply it? Is that an apology? They don't know how to defend what they believe. So to have that foundation laid early was really awesome. And then, yeah, like I went to high school, and that's when I decided to commit to sports more seriously. And I did soccer, basketball, and track for my school, but then I started doing basketball like year round as well. So after soccer practice, I'll go to basketball practice for my travel team, because the goal was to play in college, which I did. That's a whole nother story. But that also comes or speaks to a lot of who I am, because basketball taught me so many life lessons early, and from just little things about like work ethic, doing the little things, knowing when to quit versus when to press on, as far as dealing with different personality types amongst my teammates and the coaches over the years. So that is a lot of who I am. Like you mentioned that I'm a fitness enthusiast, and that's because all those years of sports, like when I got towards my junior year of college, I was like, oh, there is no more practice. Like, coach is not going to be on me to get in the gym. Like, it's going to be on me. And that's when I started my personal fitness journey, that to this day, like, I still try to work out 5 times a week. And it's just in me. And I just know, like, if I don't go to the gym, like, I'm not going to be right. So I go to the gym, even if I am not lifting the heaviest, I'm just there, I'm getting it done. That's where it started from, was the student athlete. And yeah, I grew up going to a Christian Cultural Center in Brooklyn. So I learned from Dr. A.R. Bernard, which he is such a brilliant man. Like, there is such a depth to him. And so I think that's why I am how I love deep things. I'm like, yeah, let's be real. Let's go deep. And I think that comes from being exposed to that at such an early age. And so my love for entrepreneurship came in college, when my freshman year, first game, my coach played the Guru story from Dr. Eric Thomas, E.T., the hip hop speaker, whatever you know him as. Yeah, so that's how I got introduced to E.T., and I started listening to him, and I realized, like, oh, wait a minute, my vision is too small. Because at the time, I just wanted to live a nice, simple life. Simple because I grew up around New York City. So I was like, oh, I need money. Like, I just want to have a nice place, a nice car, some designer clothes, and travel the world and be a nice nurse. Like, that was it. And then I realized, like, oh, there's actually so much more to life. And like, with our gifts, talents, abilities, our stories, we have the ability to impact other people's lives for the better, and live a life that's not just about ourselves, but has a further reach than we could ever imagine, especially when you bring God into the picture. So that shifted my mentality, as well as the idea of having independence and being able to like create a life that I wanted, and not just what society told me that I was supposed to do, as far as like go to school, get what comes first, a job or the marriage? I don't know. Go to school, get a job, get married, have kids, live happily ever after. Like, that wasn't enough for me. And so that's what planted the seed for entrepreneurship. And it's been a long time coming. So that was like 2017, 2018. And then I started my podcast, Get Up 10, in 2018. And I was like, yeah, I want to be a speaker. I want to be a coach. But I didn't really have the help or direction that I needed. And then I got into the abusive relationship, which totally took me off track. And so when I came back home and came back to myself and got my mind right, then I was like, okay, let's get back to work. And so, yeah, that's the short version. There's so much I left out. So much. I love my siblings. I love my family. I'm so blessed to be God put me in this family because like all four of my siblings, we all love the Lord and we all have our own path, but we're like really close. And I'm so big on family because of that, because of my parents, because of my siblings. Like family is everything to me. And I love to travel. My parents, we used to vacation in Florida like every year growing up. And so now to actually live in Florida is so much fun because it's like, wow, like this is a place I used to come for vacation and look forward to every year. And now it's just those same places are just like an hour or two drive away. And I'm here with my daughter now. So that's really amazing. And I've never been the type to like wait on anybody else to do things. So once I started making my own money in college, like if I saw a conference or an event or something I wanted to go to, like I did. And that has been amazing too. I've met so many amazing people over the years. And yeah, I don't know. That's a little bit about me.
Wow, yo. That's incredible. I didn't know you were a b-baller. Wow, okay.
Yes. I
Okay.
miss it so much. I'm like, God, like, open the doors for me to coach.
Man.
I'm waiting. I feel like it's gonna happen one day.
Okay. Now, you can still ball though. Like you can still go outside and do a little shooting, right?
Yeah, like that. My friend and I always say like it's like riding a bike. So yeah, like it never goes away. I don't play like I used to. I think about it all the time. But no, like if I get the opportunity, like it's on. Like I'll still play anybody. Like just give me a second and warm up, get my bearings.
Okay. So, Get Up 10, right? Name of your
Hmm.
pod. How did that come into play?
Well, it's actually named after Cardi B, which is crazy now to say that because like
Yo,
I do not follow her. I do not listen to her. Like I don't know what she's doing. I here and there I'll see like a headline. Like I know she just had some drama with Offset, but like I do not follow that woman.
yeah.
I do not promote what she's doing, what she's about. But at the time, like she had just dropped the Invasion of Privacy album, and she has a song on there called Get Up 10. And in the song, it says, knock look myself in the mirror. I said, we gonna win. Knock me down 9 times, but I get up 10. And that just really resonated with me because I've always been big on resilience, especially as a former athlete. It's like you get knocked down, you get back up. Like you turn the ball over, you better run back on defense. So like I've always had that resilience in me. And so for her, the way that she expressed it in her song just resonated with me. And on top of that, I just wanted to encourage people that no matter what you have been through, like get back up. All right. Like there's nothing that you're going through or have gone through that somebody else hasn't. And on top of that, that they've made it out and are better for it. And so that's when I bring guests onto my podcast, like that's the focus. Like here's what I went through and here's how I got through it. And let me encourage you. And the other side of that is just authenticity because I did follow Cardi B in the beginning of her career. I was introduced to her in college. So like I saw the transition from like which I have to be careful how I say this because I have nothing to do with strip clubs, never want anything to do with strip clubs. But I know like she started her career as a stripper and she would be on Instagram live and everything. And then she went from that to reality TV with Love and Hip Hop. And then that like really launched her music career. And so I just saw her really quickly like, I don't know if I'm gonna say excel, but just like that quick promotion and kind of just like branching out. Like she kind of came out of nowhere if you didn't really know her. And I just admired that throughout that whole process she stayed true to herself. Like even if she's getting on Instagram live with her wig off in the project at her family's apartment, like she still showed up. And it just made me think like what would the world look like if people stopped worrying about superficial things and just started showing up as themselves? Like how powerful would that be? And so those are kind of the two themes behind my podcast, just resilience and authenticity.
I love it. And just show up. That's what's up.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was Cardi B or not, but this is before I guess she actually blew up. I think this was like in her transitional time, but I don't know if I was coming from Florida back to New York, but I saw Cardi B and like two of her friends, but I didn't like, it didn't come to me until we actually landed in LaGuardia. And I'm like, wait a minute, that was Cardi B. I'm like, man, I should have got a picture. But no, I I appreciate and I love how, I mean, now I guess to some degree we all have our ratchet moments or whatever. But
Yeah.
but besides that, I, as a professional, as someone that, because she was grinding in the music industry, and then the way that she kind of just, catapulted was incredible. So I admire and I respect and I look up to her as far as someone that pretty much got knocked down 9 times, but really kind of, skyrocket when she got
Yeah.
up for that 10th round. But no, like I love a good story where people started just like at the bottom and just, took their time and they got to where they are now. Um you mentioned and I have it in my notes here too, that the one thing that me and you have in common is, and I was listening to him hard 2018, no, 2017, maybe even 2016. But Eric Thomas, yo,
Yes.
and I didn't even know that he was a Christian until maybe a few years later after I listened to him. But I was just like, the way. Now, some people say, "Oh, well, he just yells too much." I'm like, whatever. But
Yeah.
I, I love his intensity, and I love his enthusiasm just to just get stuff done. You know what I mean? And I was at that, yeah, it was like 2016, where I was pretty much at a place where I was just trying to figure out, like, what did I want to do? And I actually was starting to do a podcast with somebody, and that fell through. And, Eric just really, motivated me to really kind of just like to dig deep down inside and just, do
Yeah.
the things that God, has called you to do. And, I begin to really find out who I am and to find out, my rhythm and what I like to do. And um for me, a lot of people just come to me and they talk to me about their problems or their issues. And honestly, this is the reason why this podcast started, because it always starts off as a, hey, how you doing? And then an hour later, they're just telling me their whole life story. But in the middle of their life story, Ginger, I'm beginning to find out that, as they're telling me their story, the Holy Spirit is ministering to me. Like, this person found time in their day to sit down, have a coffee with me, and to walk me through their life. Pretty much like what you're doing now. And the thing is that I really wanted to find just like wisdom and like different nuggets that I can be able to glean from, and to be able to use those to help out my life and to help out others' lives as well. And so that's why I have this podcast, because there is someone, especially when you're talking about domestic violence, there is someone, by what you said, can set someone free through the Holy Spirit, of course, that's residing
Yeah.
inside of you. But so that's why I love having these conversations with people, because not only am I growing in knowledge and in insight, but there is someone that can be able to be like, you know what, I was in Ginger's spot 2 years ago, and now God is using me in so many areas of my life. And so I'm just using this as a platform of just sharing your story and just sharing your testimony for God's glory. So yeah.
Men. I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So no, I love it. And it really, I don't know. It just really just strengthens me, because not only, of course, I know that I can be able to probably will definitely beat you on one-on-one in basketball.
Okay.
But but no, but I can take off from this conversation that, doesn't matter what area or what season of life you're in, God can use you. You just need his grace, his mercy, his guidance, and he's gotten you. He's got you. So no. I actually just have one last question, and I gotta ask you this. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you this question. I by the way, you are the queen at memes on all your social medias. You be having me laughing, yo. But there was this one meme that I saw, I think either this morning or last night, and the caption was something about this whole political situation that we're going through. People were fighting, people were arguing, people just acting the fool. And you said, no, for real. Y'all be out here acting real weird right now. And it's crazy. And it always happens in election season where
Yeah.
people just act a fool. And so here's my take. I'm going to give the mic to you in a minute. But my take is, listen, we all fall short. We really do. And if you're going for Harris or Trump, eh, they're not perfect people. The only perfect person that I know is Jesus Christ, and I'm always voting for him in the spirit, for sure. Jesus
Yeah.
for my president, sure. But honestly, it does not matter to me. And I know that people going to call me crazy, but I don't care. I know that I don't really care who you vote for, because my take is I I I'm called to love you regardless. I'm called to love you regardless. I'm called to be, your brother in Christ. And so my goal, and this has been my goal for all of my life, is just to advance the kingdom. Now, I understand that we have to be earthly minded and all that. I get it. I understand that. But my thing is that it's not going to matter who you vote for, because they're all flawed people. They all make mistakes. You got, one side is not perfect and the other side is jacked up. So I'm just like, as long as I can point people to the cross and just do my job of being an example of Christ, I, I'm good. I'm good. So I just want to know, like, what are your thoughts on the election this year? I'm not asking you who you're voting for. It ain't none of my business. And honestly, it doesn't matter who you vote for, because I'm going to love you regardless. Like that. That is something that we Christians should be doing and practicing, loving each other. But I just want to know, like, how crazy has it been in this whole election season? Like, what are your thoughts about
Oh man.
it?
Like you're asking the wrong person. Cause like I agree with you. Everything seemed so much simpler when we were children. Right? Like the elections didn't seem this complicated, and like I don't know what, but like I have to remind myself, like God put me in this time period for a reason. Like I'm equipped for this, for such a time as this. Because sometimes I'm like, God, like what is this? I'm tired of unprecedented times. I want to be in precedented times. But I just remember like I was in middle school when I think my eyes were awakened to how complex and difficult choosing a candidate is, because when I was in eighth grade, it was the first time that Barack Obama ran against, I don't even remember the other guy's name. And like as a young girl, I just had this inner conflict because like I'm being raised in a Christian household, and I see that my Christian values align with one party a lot better. But the first black president, like come on, like that's so exciting. And I was not even looking at his policies or any, I was like the first black president, like that's major. And I just felt such conflict, especially being like a little black girl in a majority white school. Like Yeah. And like ever since then, every year since, I feel like I'm like, what has happened? Has it always been this trash or has it gone down? I don't know. And I don't even want to say trash because it's like these are real people, and it's so easy to look at both sides and make judgments, but at the end of the day, like that's not my job. Like only God knows. So I just say do your due diligence, be nice, all right, because a lot of people like, but it really does bring out their ugly side. Like they can't even say the other person's name. They got these crazy nicknames. It's like, how old are we? Like where does, I don't know. And I just, it's a lot, but do your due diligence. And I do feel like, especially being Afro Latina and everything and a woman, like I know that people really fought hard for me to be able to vote. And so I do feel like we should vote, but also like I'm praying because I don't know who to vote for. I mean, I know, I know, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm like, God, you sure? Like, it's difficult. It's difficult, but then it's weird because it's like the election is going to play out how it plays out. God already knows. Um, Things are going to happen and change and like life goes on. So it's like, why do we get so caught up in this season being so defensive? And I don't know. And it's honestly so funny because like as you drive through my neighborhood, like one house has the Trump van sign, and then their neighbor will have Harris walls. And is that the guy's name? Harris Wall. Anyway, okay, good. um, and such a picture of our nation and how divided we are, and just it's crazy. It's so crazy. And then like growing up, where I grew up in, under Dr. A.R. Bernard, like I've never been shy from politics because he would have the politicians in the church, but not because he was promoting them necessarily, but just because we have to be educated and we have to hear them out and make the judgments for ourselves and hear what they've said and take it back to God and take it back to his word. So I've never been afraid of politics in that regards, but it's just it's hard because it's like there's so many issues. And I think that was my frustration. I did try to watch when Trump and Kamala did their first debate. I think I lasted like 20 minutes. But it's like every time that I was like, all right, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Then they bring a new topic and it's like, oh, what? I want to hear what they have to say about that. But I think there's just like government and politics, it has to cover so much. There's so many issues that fall underneath, and it's like I can get overwhelmed thinking about that, or I can be like, okay, God, how are you using me in my community today? Or like, what do you want me to do? Like, what is the social issue that you have called me to take care of? Because your word makes it very clearly that we are to like care for the widows and the orphans and love our neighbor and all these things. So like, how, before I get caught up in voting and all that craziness, like what's my part to actually do myself? Like, that's how I look at it. Because I'm like, it's too much. It's too much. It's too much.
It really is. It's crazy. And like you said, we are really divided. I didn't really realize how divided we really are, yo. And I guess, my goal is to just try to, and I know that until the day that I go and see Jesus, there's always going to be sin and division and confusion because, this is the fallen state. But I just choose to be a man of just love, peace, and just trying to bridge the gap, man. That's all.
Yeah,
That's all. That's all I try to be.
exactly. And I
Yeah.
will say, without being too spooky or creepy, might be overusing those words in this season, but I do feel like it is very interesting times for America. I do feel like things are happening and unfolding. So it's like, yeah, it's just crazy because it's like I feel like we have big events up ahead, and obviously like leadership does matter, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. All I could do is, like you said, be that peacemaker and make sure that my house is in order.
For real.
That's all I'll say.
No, I hear you. Well, Ginger, listen, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the pod and hope that you be able to come back soon and pod with me again.
Yes, thank you so much for this invitation and this opportunity. The time really flew by. I was like, yeah, we could do 30 minutes. And then it was so easy to just keep going.